Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Breakdown with your not-so-humble talking hairdo, Ben. Oh, man, what a week it has been. We're coming to you live from the Majestic Coffee Shop in downtown Abilene, Texas. We are at the Neon Parrot Live Studios today, as we are, and I am once again alone. I come to you alone today. Not lonely, but alone. My co-host, the resident Aggie Viking Blake, is having to work around the time that we broadcast this show, but we're going to work around that soon and get him on before his work starts. Very soon. But, man, I've got my Wall Street Journal scattered about the desk here. Don't know if you can see it or not, but man, there's some crazy sports stories. We had the NFL draft take place last week after the show, and man, nobody could have guessed what happened. What the main story is the Shedeur Sanders drop. He was projected by all the talking heads, not hairdos like myself, the Mel Kiper Juniors of the world. What a clown. Mel Kiper Jr., you've lost all professional credibility, in my opinion. I mean, this dude is basically coming after all these NFL teams for not choosing Shedeur Sanders as like in the top 10 pick. And as we've been talking about on this show for months now with Big Frank from Chicago and Blake, is that he is a talent. He's not a top. He's really not even a first-round pick. He may be a first-round pick, but I wanted him to go to the Raiders because I'm just desperate, and it's just miserable that we're stuck with Geno Smith and freaking Pete Carroll's old ass, but that's okay. I still have hope there, but the Raiders passed on Shedeur Sanders, I think, 5 times, as well as the Steelers. So Thursday night draft starts. We're going to get into this with Big Frank in a minute when I call him, but we're all expecting Sanders to go within like at least the first 20 picks, right? To a team like Pittsburgh that needs a quarterback, to a team like the Raiders that need a quarterback. Me and my son, because my son's the resident Pittsburgh fan, we're just screaming at the TV. We can't believe it, that we're just passing up on this kid that's like, he's not terrible. But what happened is the truth begins to come out of the absolute, just kind of shit show that Dion and Shedeur Sanders bring with them, that the NFL teams didn't want. And so the first round plays out and it keeps on going. No Shedeur Sanders pick. And then Friday, no Shedeur Sanders pick. He went into, like, I don't know, was it the 5th round or something? I'm going to get on, like I said, I'm going to get on with Big Frank about this and really break this down. But essentially, Shedeur Sanders was sandbagging interviews. He was going into these NFL interviews with general managers and coaches and billionaire owners, and he thought that he was interviewing them for the job. And whoa, that backfired. Apparently in one of these interviews, he got a FaceTime call during the interview, and he just took it and just ignored the GM and the freaking billionaire who was trying to, see what he's all about as a leader. And, Deion Sanders did that back when he was drafted a billion years ago. But he could do that because he was the best athletic talent we had seen up to that point. And so, and all this legendary crap. He's got a legendary gold chain, legendary shirt. You know, it was just it's just a clown show, and he's not good enough. He's not his father. He is not Deion Sanders. He is half of Deion Sanders, and half of Deion Sanders' wife, which was not a professional athlete to my knowledge. So the takeaway is like all these talking heads, that all these draft guys like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and all these other douches, they basically were telling us what was real, and that was not real. And then they try to make it about race, which that I can't even understand how anybody could even go there, because the NFL is responsible for more black millionaires than any other company in the history of the United States of America, or probably the world. So, the NFL is anything but racist. And there were so many other black men that were drafted before Sanders that for us to even go there is ridiculous. But, there's ESPN's always got to have some kind of weird angle. Stephen A. Smith, Mel Kiper, all these guys, gotta go viral for something, because they can't pick a draft right, that's for sure. But what we learned was Shedeur dropped, and he ended up with the Cleveland Browns. So what does that mean? That means that his career's over before it started. Or maybe he'll be like a Baker Mayfield and get the hell out of there and go to a good team, one day. And like here again, I hope for this kid in this position, to watch him drop, and then get drafted by the Browns. I hope this is humbling for Shedeur Sanders, because, I'm sure he's a nice guy. There's so many stories to get into today, folks, about this draft, which I keep saying this, but we will be getting Big Frank on the phone here in a couple minutes after I kind of finish my intro here. But there was a viral video where a kid got Shedeur Sanders' phone number and prank called him on the night of the draft. And it is bad. But what bad gets worse, how bad gets worse, is the kid is on video prank calling Sanders. And he's like, hey, this is whoever, and we're about to take you on this next pick. And he's like, oh, that's great. That's great. And then he goes, but you're going to have to wait for a while. Hangs up, just dumb kid stuff. But the worst part of that is it's Jeff Ulbricht's son, who is the Falcons' defensive coordinator. So somehow or another, the defensive coordinator's son gets Shedeur Sanders' phone number, along with a lot of other guys. And they prank call these guys on what is, like, up to this point, the biggest moment of their life. So, and they're dumb enough to have it on video. We've all done really dumb shit when we were kids on video. And anyways, that's crazy. We're going to break that down with Big Frank. But the Sanders thing, I wanted to rant about that for a minute. And because I hope this is a humbling experience for him. I hope he gets out of Cleveland as fast as he can and goes to any team would be better than that team. But he's got a quarterback room of like 4 dudes, and you got Joe Flacco there that's coming off an injury, I think. But Joe Flacco's like 40 and can throw bombs and darts and have good days. So I don't know. Hope the best for him, but I hope everybody else that, that's nepotism that didn't work, because the NFL is a merit-based business. What have you done? What can you do for me now? Not what have you done for me lately? Not what did you do for me last year? But what can you do for me now? And nobody's bigger than the NFL. Nobody. And, there's other sports where names can be bigger than a sport, like Messi in soccer or Ronaldo, whatever. Who cares about soccer anyways, right? But nobody's bigger than football. Nobody's bigger than the National Football League. And you can take that to the bank, folks. That was proven over the weekend. And if you've never seen the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner, you should watch it immediately. It's really actually good. We've got lots of different topic. I'm going to get into Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend. Bill Belichick is my father's age. He is 74 years old now, I think. And he started dating this former cheerleader when she was 23. And he's my father's age. He's 74. Okay. So his girlfriend is now, there's a CBS interview. Bill wrote a book, had somebody write a book for him. And, anyways, he did an interview on CBS, and the girlfriend's like right over here in the background. And the interviewer says, well, you sure have been bringing your girlfriend along with you at North Carolina, on the field and things like this. And he's like, how did y'all two meet? And then boom, out comes the girlfriend, and she says, we're not talking about that. We're not answering those kind of questions. And I'm like, who is this chick? And I get the sugar daddy thing. Like, I understand it. Do your thing, man. But like, this chick is like in your business, and maybe that's how lonely he is, but we'll get into that with Big Frank as well. That's a weird topic. We've got NBA news. The only thing that's interesting about the NBA is when somebody gets in a fight, and because the play on the court sucks, but this Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, after the Bucks loss, Tyrese Halliburton's father gets on the court and starts barking in Giannis's face. And the video's funny because Giannis is like almost 7 feet tall, and this guy's dad is like, a 5'5", scaring the shit out of 5'10" guy like myself. And he's just looking up at him. That's how we do this. That's how we. And like, I'm just like, parents always ruin sports. Apparently, even at the professional level. It was the worst look ever. And embarrassing for Tyrese Halliburton, I'm sure. Why does the security just let these clowns on the court? Because, what happens is somebody's going to get hit in the face, and Tyrese's dad's probably 50-something. He gets, punched out by a 7-footer. Who's getting sued? What's going to happen? So the security at these games is awful. But hockey playoffs, we're going to get into that. Towards the end of the segment, I would like to cover cops with beards and how I have a problem with that because I don't take them as seriously anymore. But we'll get into that. We've got an AI article from the Wall Street Journal that we're going to get into. We might talk about the conclave and the Pope died or whatever, and they're going to pick a new Pope. And some of that's interesting. There's gambling lines on the next Pope, by the way. But I would never break down. I would never, ever wager on a religious matter such as that. Right, guys? WWE, I got my new NWO Wolfpack shirt on from back in the day, but they make new stuff too. I'm so pumped. Me and my son have just found this new bond of watching wrestling together, and it is awesome. But for now, we're going to break this down with Big Frank. I'm going to get him on the line. I can't believe it, but man, I can't wait to hear what he has to say about the Sanders drop. And I want to get his take on Bill Belichick's young girlfriend. It's pretty interesting. Okay, here we go. Let's go, baby. Let's do this.
Hello.
Hey, Big Frank. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Ben? How are you guys today?
Oh, man. Doing great. What we knew we were going to have stuff. We knew we were going to have content to talk about last week, but I didn't think we'd have this much.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of though. As far as everybody was expecting a big splash. It kind of went like how they were predicting it was going to go a couple months ago. You know what I mean? As far as like, okay, Ward was always going to be number one.
Right.
Obviously the Sanders thing was the talk of the draft. I didn't think he was a first round pick. I don't know, maybe after that, second, third, or fourth, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the fall, as far as he did, I think that was obviously the talk of the draft and what was the reason, for that. But, as far as your Raiders go, the word around here was we really wanted Gentry, but the Raiders were going to take him,
Right.
And it wound up happening. And, there's always a team that does that has to go up and get, a top two player, whether you want to give up that much. And this year it was Jacksonville.
Yeah.
To go up to number two, to give up what they gave up to get that kid, they must have thought that this guy's going to be a difference maker for us. And that kind of, threw that, crazy right off the bat. But then after that, everything kind of just like settled in. And, for us over here sitting at 10, obviously I think we wanted to go O-line if one of those guys was going to be there of the big three, and none of them were there. I mean, the last one that was available was the Banks kid from Texas, and he went like the pick before us or the two picks before us. And then after that, it's like, okay, what do? You got to take the best, guy on your board. And talk down here was always going to be, we were going to take a tight end, but they were going to take the kid from Penn State instead of Michigan. But either one of them, I think they're about the same. And they went tight end like they said they were gonna. So, and then after that, it kind of like, okay, everybody just stood, pat. There wasn't that many more trades out of it because, all the big guys were gone. A lot of offensive D linemen, the quarterback and Hunter were gone. And then, the rest of the draft after that was how far is Sanders going to fall, kept your interest in it,
Yeah. And that, what do you think? So, right before I had you on in my intro, to me, Mel Kiper, what a clown. I mean, can you believe that?
He's been doing that though for years. If you remember, he got into it with the whoever the Colts GM was at the time, and I forget who it was, but there's a big clip going back, and he got in and he was being interviewed. He goes, "Who's this Mel Kiper?" He's a joke because Kiper thought for sure, the Colts should have taken him at that point, and he does it all the time. It's these so-called draft experts that really have no idea, especially for somebody like him who's never played the game. You got these Orlovskis and these other guys that at least they've been in the NFL. They kind of know how it goes.
Right.
But you get a guy like Mel Kiper who just has contacts from over the years. And I'm not going to say he doesn't do anything. I'm sure he does his research. He spends, all of his days researching and giving grades from what he gathers and what the info that people give them. But I think that's a prime example of all the bullshit that they give to these guys up to the draft and who they're looking for, because it was, the Steelers got to take Sanders at 21 if he goes down that far, especially if they don't have to trade up for him. Well, 21 came and they didn't pick him, and then it's like, okay, second round, they got a chance for him and they let him go. You know what I mean? So it's like, what do you know? And then to go on and rant like that from an outsider that doesn't know anybody. And if you start reading all the stuff that's coming out about this, without them burying him too much, he was a horrible interviewer.
Yeah.
He's not that smart, doesn't have the football intelligence that everybody thinks they do. And I'm not going to waste a high round pick and pay money for somebody that could sit for 2 or 3 years. That's okay. If you want to draft a quarterback in the later rounds, which happens a lot, and you can develop a guy because you don't have to pay him. But if you're going to pay somebody, 10, 15, 20 million a year, I don't know, whatever these quarterbacks get, and you're not going to play him right off the bat, I mean, you got to know for sure. And he just wasn't a surefire, pick. To go as far down as he did. I don't know about that, but obviously a
How
lot of
about
teams weren't enamored, especially with so many teams needing quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know what I
other
mean?
thing. They must have really, because I don't think, it seemed like a blackball, but at the same time, like those interviews must have been real bad. And
Yeah, I don't know. Blackball is one thing, but if you need a quarterback, okay, you're going to go and get him, regardless of what he said or what who said. I think if you just your scouts. I mean, this is a 365-day job now. These guys are already starting to work on next year's draft and the draft after that,
right,
and seeing how these guys are going to grade out. And I just don't think the teams really thought that this guy was as good as all the so-called experts thought that they were.
exactly.
He never was. He was recruited, but where did he go? He went with his dad. And then when his dad went from, that small college, the name escapes me right now,
Jackson State,
to go to Colorado, and then all of a sudden he just follows him along. It's like, okay, if he didn't go with his dad, who would have tried to get him? You know what I mean? So you're never going to know that because he didn't go through that. So I think the draft came to be like, okay, he's like his recruit out of high school. Who's going to take him? Well, there wasn't really a lot of people that wanted to take him.
Yeah, and
he might not be as good as they said he was.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me, kind of what my take off the real fall of Sanders on the draft is the NFL basically said you're nobody's bigger than us. You're not going to come in here and dictate terms because his father was able to do that whenever he was drafted because he was the best athlete we'd ever seen at the time.
Correct.
And
yes.
and he's half of his father. Yeah. And he's half of whoever Deion Sanders' wife is, who was not a professional athlete. and it's just like nepotism failed right there. And the karma, the football karma that ended up happening to that family to be drafted by the Browns after it all.
Yeah, after he said I would never want the Browns to draft him. But I think it just goes to the talent just wasn't there.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as what they said is like, okay, he's a surefire. He's not going to bust, right? Well, they didn't want to go out on a limb, and picks are so hard to come by and to have that and especially in the first round, unless you're a playoff team and you're drafting at the end of the round, you got to hit in the beginning to get those. Those blue chippers that are, 90-95% of the time they're going to hit. It's very seldom that if you take somebody in the first round, there are examples, but you think of all the people that are picked every year for the top ones, the ones that don't make it, the percentage is really small, but you got to be the one that hits it. You don't want to be the one that picks the one that's not going to hit. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's just what it is,
Yeah, me and my son. So, my son's a Steelers fan. Why? I'll never know. But anyways, we're just screaming at the TV at the very beginning of the night because, like, to me, the Steelers and the Raiders, like, I was kind of like, why don't we just take the kid? Why is it going to hurt? Like, because we just, neither one of us have anybody. And, they're being held hostage by Aaron Rodgers' old ass. So I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a hostage thing right now. I think Rodgers is going there. I really do. And I think the Steelers, because of what they did in the draft, kind of knew he wasn't going to come. So what they're saying is next year's draft class and the year after that, depending upon when, the Manning kid, Arch Manning, wants to turn pro, right? He's the latest hot number one that, that's going to go out. So I think what Pittsburgh is doing is say, okay, look, Aaron's out there. We've met with him. He knows he wants to come here. He was on McAfee. I'm sure, you're out. Everybody's talking about how he's got all these personal issues that he's dealing with right now, that he let all these teams that he met with know what was going on. And when he's ready to make his decision, he'll obviously understand if there's a spot there, fine. If not, I'll have to move on and I'll have to deal with the repercussions because it was my choice. I think he does want to go there because they're always a winning program and, good stuff around him. So I think Pittsburgh looked at it as, look, we're probably 100% going to get Rogers. So why waste a pick on the Sanders kid when you don't really know if he's going to make it right now?
Yeah.
Where we could get somebody that can help us now, and then if our quarterback room, stinks again this year, if we don't get it, then we've got next year where we could pick up, the next, quarterbacks that are coming out.
Yeah.
So I think it's what they did in there. So, but they did wind up, and I don't have it in front of me, but they did wind up taking a quarterback, didn't they, or no?
I can't remember. I don't think they did.
Okay, because I know they took the guy I really wanted to take in the second, the third round, and they took him just ahead of us. I think it was the Steelers, was Sawyer out of Ohio State, if I'm thinking right. I thought he went to the Steelers or maybe somebody else.
Yeah, you know who else we talked about last week? Who fell way down, or he didn't fall in the draft. He's just not a very big kid. But the Arizona State Scadaboo running back, the Giants took him
second or third rounder.
Yeah, the Giants had a good draft, I think. I mean, you know what I mean?
Actually, everybody, it's all on paper. You all see how these guys are going to grade out,
right?
Once you get there. But what's interesting also about the draft is we touched on this. I brought it up. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but this NIL thing, really is going to start to affect. A prime example is that was on one of the shows here I was listening to the other day, and they used this Urs kid, that your quarterback from Texas.
Yeah.
I forget his first name, but his
Quinn.
last name is Quinn.
Yeah.
Okay. He was, at the beginning of last year, he was really what was supposed to be a possible second round stud. He got hurt. Plus, he had the unfortunate part of Manning chose Texas to go there as a freshman, and then he got hurt, and then he didn't play. But then I guess he played back at the end of the year, and they had him videoed for the draft. And the first day he was there, and they all got their hot girlfriends next to him, right? They're all dressed up, and the whole family and everything is there, and he didn't get picked. And then they had him for the second day, and he didn't get picked. Well, he didn't get picked until like the last day, so they still had him on there. Everybody's in blue jeans now, just t-shirts, waiting to get picked. I don't know if you've seen it. You can YouTube it and see. But I think the Dolphins finally picked him like in the 7th round. Like, they had their last pick, and they said, well, you know what? We're going to bring this kid in. They were saying that because he chose to go to the draft, and once you declare for the draft, there's that rule. You can't go back to college, even if you don't get drafted, I guess, or something like that. But his top salary at a 7th round pick is going to be like $300,000-400,000. Where if he would have stayed and did the NLI transfer portal, he could have easily got $4 to $5 million a year from schools like Miami or somebody that needs a desperate quarterback.
Yeah.
With the skill set that he had, and by him choosing to go to the draft, not only didn't get drafted early, but got drafted late, and because he came out, cost him a ton of money because NIL would have paid him to stay in college longer.
Yeah.
So,
wow,
that's an example of what's going to happen in the future. If you're not going to be a top, I'd say eventually the draft is going to go to 3 to 4 rounds, and then that's it, because why go after that when these kids, once they realize if you take that gamble and declare for the draft, Sanders and all these other guys, and you're dropping and losing money, why not stay back in school?
Yeah.
And get the transfer money and work your way up to get to that high pick.
Yeah, and here's one for you. You know how bad Texas wants to win next year? they're committing $35 to $45 million just on the football team.
Yeah. And what is Arch Manning getting as far as NIL money?
Tons.
Tons to stay, because especially after this year, since he didn't play much last year, he stays this year. If he plays great, how many schools are going to come after him and say, hey, look, it's only your second year of college. You're only your first year playing. You might get drafted high in the draft depending upon how your season went. But if you're not going to be a sure pick, hey, what's Ohio State going to want to bid for this guy? What's Miami? What's Georgia? What's Alabama? What are all these schools? It's the rich are just going to get richer in college football, I think, now.
Absolutely.
With NIL money and everything. You're very seldom, I think, you're going to see a Cinderella team come out of nowhere to keep people unless it's a player that's trying to prove himself. And if he does, then next year he's gone. So
yeah,
it'll be very, very interesting. Yeah.
so I got one more draft topic, and then I gotta get your take on Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend after this. But one more draft topic: Jeff Ulbrich from the Falcons' son on the prank calls to Sanders and others. Whoa.
Yeah, apparently though, I was again on just listening to radio and stuff down here is that goes on all the time.
That time it was just filmed, huh?
Absolutely. The kid made the mistake of filming it.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to go on. But apparently, according to people that got drafted, I forget who they were talking to this morning, an NFL player and a couple of them, is they get pranked all the time. That usually sometimes it's a buddy of theirs that they know or somebody like that. They're going to, because usually that info doesn't get out there.
Right.
But because the coach left his computer on, the kid got on there and seen it. He's going to start to prank. And that's why this one has gotten to be so big, because it got out there, especially on the internet nowadays. Whereas before, you used to get calls all the time. They said, unless I got a call from my agent, because what they used to do is they would call the agent first and say, hey, look at,
and what's funny about that?
Up next, if he's still on the board, we're going to take him unless it's a trade. So then the agent calls the kid and lets him know, say, hey, look at, barring anything happen, so-and-so is going to take you. But I guess with social media nowadays and everything, it's like they can get to him before, and if you get your number out and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of...
The other thing on the Sanders kid is he doesn't have an agent. Dion's his agent,
Yeah.
And I didn't realize either. He didn't throw at the combine. He doesn't have an agent. Like there was so many things. Yeah.
So just, and I think it just goes to show you, I mean, talk about somebody who's lost some money, first round pick down to a fourth rounder, and you're going to ride the bench right away and learn what you can. He's not going to be making as much as he wants, and hopefully the talent will be there. He's small. They say his arm talent's not that good, and he doesn't have good decisions in making the ball. He was the most sacked quarterback in college football last year.
Wow.
From what I was gathering. He holds on to the ball too long, and they also said that Travis Hunter made him so much better than if you wouldn't have had him as a receiver.
Right.
Because you look at his stats and say, oh, he had, Hunter caught a touchdown pass. Well, he caught the pass, only a 20-yard pass, but then he took it 60 yards.
Yeah.
Or 50 yards. So it goes down as a touchdown pass of 70 yards, but the ball was actually only thrown like 15 or 20, and he let him do the rest. So, what happens if he didn't have Hunter? How good would he have been and stuff like that? So, there's always one that drops, and then there's always that team that really, gives away the future. I mean, geez, Jacksonville gave her, their first-round pick next year to jump up.
Yeah, so on the Jacksonville deal, I've got the Wall Street Journal Sports Weekend out in front of me right now, and they've got a whole article on the new Jacksonville Jaguars general manager, James Gladstone, is 34 years old. And they say who just blew up the NFL draft, and I'm like, yeah, he might have blown up his job too. We'll see how that goes,
Yeah.
But it's just like it seems like and I hope the best for that kid. But like Jacksonville, Cleveland, New York Jets, it's like it's just always the same story.
Yeah, they draft a guy and it doesn't it doesn't work out per se, because those guys are usually drafting high, and the problem is they're always usually drafting a quarterback, and then the quarterbacks just don't work out, so then they have to reset again and then go through the whole process of who they want to get, so it's
I should have added my Raiders in there to that knock, but whatever. I left them out.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, their talk around here was if he was available, the Bears definitely would have taken him. And even if he would have dropped to like 8 or 9, there was talk of the Bears even, just swapping first, moving up, and then maybe giving him a second or third, because they love the guy so much. He does stand out. I mean, he should be good, but not if you don't have a quarterback that can throw the ball around. If you think that he's going to get the ball every time he touches it, he's not going to be any good. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're going to have to mix it in a little bit with the pass and the run and get him in like that. But he's definitely everybody that up in Chicago was just hoping that he would have fell to us because they probably would have taken him.
Right.
So
So what are your is the the second career of Bill Belichick is I don't know that it's worth all the attention that it gets, but it's interesting to me and a lot of us sports junkies because this is just a totally different dude than we ever saw. And he's my father's age. He's 74, I think, and he's got this 24-year-old girlfriend. And like, do your thing. I don't care. I think it's great. But like, she's like getting in his business. Did you hear about the CBS interview?
Oh yeah, it's all over the place. I mean, you go on all the apps like Barstool Sports and all of them, and Sports Mockery is another big one, and they have it. I mean, the thing about him is he was probably one of the worst interviews to ever give for a head coach. He'd have those press conferences, and again, I'm not in New England, so you just see it for national, and he'd give the one-word answers,
Yeah.
wouldn't talk. And because they were so good and won so many Super Bowls, they cut the guy a lot of slack, I think, as far as, okay, well, we're not going to waste any time with him. So then he gets out of coaching, and then he was a great analyst on television. When he would be on ESPN, and he used to be on the McAfee show, and he would come on and he would break down some stuff. It was kind of interesting to see, and I'm thinking, this is the same guy that didn't want to talk about anything to there. And then, the whole girlfriend thing is, my take on that is he was married to football for so long. And, obviously he has kids, so he was married at one time and, has been divorced for a while. I think what he's trying to do is make up for lost time for the, 30, 40 years that he gave into coaching.
Well, he's doing a pretty good job of that.
Yes. But, sometimes those guys that get like that, that's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week. You might get a couple of weeks off after the season ends, but then especially for somebody like him who was always part general manager, maybe not quote the title, but was always involved in everything. I mean, you literally have to be married to your job. Obviously, it cost him his marriage because he's divorced, and now he gets out. He's got all this free time. And then, some, hot-looking 24-year-old is showing some interest. I mean, what guy that age wouldn't say, "Hey, look at
Yeah, that's true.
What's going on?"
I just think it's funny that he's trading one type of high maintenance for another type of high maintenance.
Yeah. But that interview that you see with him with CBS, that felt like when he was still in football. When somebody trying to give him a question, but then the girlfriend is off into the corner. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah.
And she's yelling at him to stop the interview. Apparently, there's another stuff that was cut where she actually got up and got in the interviewer's face and asked Belichick to leave. But he said, "No, I'm going to stay and finish this," or something like that. So there's always more to the story than what you hear, but it's kind of fascinating to me. So.
Yeah, and what's also interesting to me, one of our direct competitors show here, The Herd with Colin Cowherd, we have more viewership than he does on the breakdown. However, what's interesting to me is that like his take, because I like listening to Colin sometimes, but he's like, well, she's just acting as a publicist for him, as a PR person. And I'm like, come on, man, this is a little weird. It's a little beyond that.
If that's the case, you ought to fire her because that's not the kind of publicity you want.
No.
And I've heard today there's more rumblings of, does North Carolina really want to put up with that crap now?
Because she's on the field. I've heard that she's been on the field.
Yeah.
And then his daughter-in-law, because one of his sons, Steve, I think, coaches with him. Well, his daughter-in-law just fired some shots at the girlfriend, kind of under.
Yeah. But then I was reading again another one. I think it was in Barstool. His daughter, his Belichick's daughter, actually, got on and said, this girl is a train wreck. Tried to warn the dad that, you shouldn't be getting involved with it. But that's just an old guy. Again, listen, if you're 70 years old and you're single and some hot-looking 24-year-old is showing interest in you,
you're doing it.
Who's going to say no? Especially if you're not married, who's going to say, "Hey, you know what? I don't know if I want to get involved with that."
Absolutely, appreciate the honesty there, Big Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking from an old guy, So I'm just saying.
Oh, that's great. But yeah, apparently we're all still very interested in Bill Belichick. It has made for some great off-season drama, I will say.
And that's exactly it. With nothing going on right now, that's, everybody is like, okay, the draft is over now. Now the big thing is the schedule gets announced. I think here in like about 10 or 12 days, sometime in May. And then that's a big thing. So then they'll talk about, we already know who we're playing, per se, but the dates aren't out there yet. So then, the schedules are coming out and stuff like that. So that'll be the next thing. And then the mini camps will start. So then we'll get your interest back then. But it just goes to show you how slow it is when there's nothing going on. That's what they're going to want to talk about,
Absolutely. Well, Big Frank, you are the show today. That was awesome. I can't.
Hey, listen, before we go, I want to get your take because you got me going. I know that you're a big wrestling fan now.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think of the McAfee-Gunther match
that's coming on thanks for bringing that up.
In St. Louis?
I am so pumped. That's this Saturday?
It's this Saturday. I guess there's something called, and I don't have the name of it. I should, I write these things down sometimes and then I forget about them. But they got a thing coming up this Saturday in St. Louis. They've got a name to it. It's a way for WWE, other than if there's not WrestleMania going and Raw.
Yeah.
They have these special things come out, and it's Saturday night in St. Louis.
Oh, and yes.
The big match is Gunther and Pat McAfee.
I love it. I love that so much.
I do too.
I watched the deal on Monday. Did you watch Monday night's deal where?
Yeah, after we talked last week, I told you I gave up on it. So I went back and, I got on it and I watched the part where, he got choked out and, they had to bring him in the back and all his buddies from the show were trying to help. And it was just classic WWE. They
so
have to
good.
do that every once in a while when they think it's kind of getting stale.
Yeah.
And, you gotta love it. And listen, here's my take on that. And I wish I could be like a writer for the WWE because we all know, I don't think wrestling is fake per se. Fake meaning you have to be a pretty good athlete to do the stuff that they do.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Getting hit with trade. But we all know that it's choreographed and the storylines are written. Wouldn't it be great if in that ring, they came out, and there's McAfee, and just before he comes on, they announced that Trump and his border czar have deported Gunther back to wherever he comes from because it was illegal, and you got Gunther trying to want to get in the ring, but you got ICE agents there and take him away. I mean, seriously, wouldn't you think that would be a great storyline for them to do?
That they should hire you right away, Big Frank.
You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden he shows his papers and they let him get in the ring because seriously, Gunther would just tear McAfee apart. I mean, McAfee is somewhat in shape, but something like that. But I mean, I'm thinking about the storylines for this. Wouldn't that be just absolutely wild? That would be talked about for a long, long time.
Oh, that would be so great.
I just wanted to get your take on that one to see what happens on Saturday.
Oh, man, I'm so excited because I didn't realize it was coming up so quickly, but I think the McAfee thing, it's like in the sports world, we needed him whenever he showed up because he's pushes the envelope.
He's outlandish. Yeah, he gets on a show.
But he's a young enough guy, and in the wrestling thing, he's all in with that. And like you said, he's in good enough shape to get in there in the ring with these guys.
Yeah, a couple years back, he was always going at it with Stone Cold. They had him where Stone Cold did that neck thing, and he had a beer in him, and he was knocked out, and then he was in and out of it for a while, and then he got back into announcing last year with it. So I think he's really trying to stay in it and stuff like that. So it's great for wrestling because every once in a while they have to do something like that to bring out the new talent. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So
It's
cool.
just, it's classic. So.
Well, I guess we'll be watching on Saturday. I'll probably shoot you a text or something. We'll laugh about it.
Yes.
Well, cool, Big Frank. Well, like I said, we really appreciate you coming on this show. You make it so much better. And
I enjoy it, man. I look forward to
we'll
it.
talk to you next week, probably.
All right, buddy. Talk to you
All
soon.
right. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
See ya. Oh man, breakdown. What? It's not even an interview. That is more than a segment. That is the breakdown right there in a nutshell. I would cut Big Frank off if it wasn't so good. Like if he wasn't just giving me solid gold bricks of content, then I would stop him. But that is just such a great segment, and I'm not lying, Big Frank. We really do appreciate you on this show because we can go all around the world of sports with Big Frank, and what a gem. And that was so funny that the Trump and the ICE agents with Gunther and Pat McAfee, they should hire Big Frank to write the script of the WWE. Okay, we're about close to our closing up shop here on the breakdown. The week after the draft, we have the Kentucky Derby this weekend. Clearly, we have a WWE event this weekend. Let's see here. We covered a lot of different things. Belichick's girlfriend. I think quickly, they've kind of reduced the regulations in the police department, at least in our town, to where they can have like these kind of, semi-full beards. And I don't like it. I miss the days of the cop with the strong jawline and the, clean-shaven face. That I don't know. I think they're making a mistake there. But who the hell wants to do that job anyways anymore? So thank you to you guys that do it. I'm not knocking you. I don't have a problem with you. I appreciate what you do. I just think you need to pull the razor out because the beard thing just isn't working for me. We've got one little AI article. We like to tell you the doom of the robots on this show. This article says we now know how AI thinks. It is not thinking at all. The vast brains of artificial intelligence can memorize endless lists of rules. Useful, yes, but that's not how humans solve problems. This would take me forever to read, so that was kind of a waste of your time. That's okay. I will say that Tesla's stock's going back up. It's been taking a little rough couple of months here. Then this guy, Carlos Ghosn, this guy is, he escaped. There is a crazy story about this, folks. 5 years after he escaped in a crate, Ghosn has a mansion and a yacht in Lebanon. This guy's lived quite a life, folks. Carlos Ghosn, I may be mispronouncing it, but a couple years back, I read this story about this guy, these two guys, maybe they were kind of ex-military guys, but this guy had been detained or arrested in Japan. And these dudes smuggled him out in a container and like the bottom of a plane when he was like 70 years old or something. Let's see here. A vehicle carrying Ghosn, not pictured, was surrounded by media as it left his lawyer's office in Tokyo on March 6, 2019. He was released from a Tokyo prison on bail after 108 days detention. He would later flee Japan hidden in a music crate on a private plane. Crazy. Fugitive, living in Lebanon, yachts. Crazy. Okay. Chili's is making a comeback, guys. That's kind of a weird story. Yeah, inflation made Chili's cool again. The Triple Dipper has garnered substantial online attention and drawn a younger crowd. Basically, they're just saying, hey, our prices are, you get more food, better quality, and fast food prices are through the roof, so come to Chili's. Very interesting. We got the Kentucky Derby this weekend. I think I mentioned that. I always like to do a little wagering on the Kentucky Derby. Okay. Getting close. Getting close here, folks. Ooh, IBM is back. Let's just see here. Let me get on this, and then we're going to close up shop. Don't worry. I was going to get a hockey playoffs, but we're not going to get into that today. Kentucky Derby. Oh, and on the breakdown, we're the only show that will tell you when the end of the world is. That is in 2028 is when the world ends, because the guy with the best shot of winning the race of the Pope in the conclave is this Italian fella named Pietro, and the doomsday prophecies state that the last Pope will be of Italian descent, and his name will be Peter, and then the world ends in 2028. So you all have that to look forward to. That means we have 3 more football seasons, depending on when the world actually ends. So put your coin on Pietro for the Pope, and yeah, NASCAR this weekend at the Texas Motor Speedway in, I guess, Fort Worth, Texas-ish. I really want to go. I'm thinking about just buying a couple of tickets and going there on Sunday for the race. It sounds like an amazing time. Anyhow, the breakdown, what a show today, and thanks again, Big Frank. That was our show, was our talk with Big Frank, and it was awesome. And go Raiders, go Bears. Cotton Warehouse show, May 9th, next Friday. Gates open at 6 for the public. We're going to have all kinds of vendors, 3 different bands playing. We'll get into that a little more next time, but it's going to be a hell of a show. And we have all kinds of fun activities planned for that evening. And I would like to thank my producer extraordinaire, Sam Wolf. Come down to the Majestic Coffee Shop, get you a coffee or maybe a sparkling water. And this is The Breakdown with your man, your host, your not-so-humble talking hairdo, Ben. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.